Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the session today. We might have a pretty good sized group. There have been about 50 registered, so we'll see. Not everybody is able to come. Conflicts and stuff come in. Today and Thursday are going to be interesting topics for me. Covered them before, but in a different way. So today we're going to focus on the whole using control for production, tracking and moving jobs through through the shop. So today we're going to start off with very, very basics. I visited with 6 or so of clients that I've worked with over the years to just pick their brains on how they're currently managing the production process. And then we're going to digress from that, or step forward from that and say, okay, now how might control become more of a valuable tool, begin to automate more, if not all, of that process. And then we're going to wrap up today, because I found from my own experience, when you introduce change, sometimes you get people that drag their feet. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then on Thursday, we're going to talk about what are the things that you really need to keep in mind, be very conscious of, to begin to think in terms of making changes to automate that process. And we'll talk about some of the current production workflow processes that are likely in your system. They may vary from one system to the next, and that's not a significant thing to consider at all. Then we want to get deeper and begin to get you to think in terms of your operation. What is your workflow? What is your capacity in terms of people and equipment? And then begin to try to tie that together. And then we'll spend the last last bit of Thursday actually looking at some of the cloud tools, cloud production app, it's called, and the cloud calendar app. That can help, with that process. So let's set this aside. I do have to make sure that you're aware. Today, there's a technical issue on my end that's affecting my ability to demonstrate or to show you the cloud app and the calendar app. That's not a significant thing. I can easily incorporate that into the Thursday discussion. So don't be concerned that, well, I'm not going to be able to flip over. So let's get started. There is a handout that's posted on the webinar. Notice down there at the bottom it says handouts. There should be one item posted there, one document posted. Yeah, I see it there. I would encourage you to download that right away if you can. I'll use that, make reference to it a couple of times. We will not use it for any kind of a detailed discussion, but I want you to have it in your hands, because as we get into some of the features in control, there are some credentials that are involved. And rather than go through the details online of what those credentials are and how you get them set up, et cetera, there's just that handout is an aid, to help you do that. The first picture that you see there is one of the clients that I worked with for years, and he shared a picture of his production board. So kind of with that in mind, let's get started. As I said, I worked with 6 clients, visited with them on the phone. They ranged in sales from $500,000 up close to 5 million. So they had very different environments. Their business focus was very, very different. So I wanted to find out from them what does their production process look like, processes. And they all articulated basically 4 areas. One was they use job jackets. And those job jackets pretty consistently are made up of work orders from control. They may include a WIP report or a WIP line item report as well. And then there might be a copy of an invoice that they slip in there. And none of them, interestingly enough, use the docs feature within control. They tended to use external file structure for any documents that they might want to include for such as drawings or anything of that nature. This actual scheduling process, none of them used the activity manager in control. 2 clients use Google Calendar instead. Some of them were aware of and used the stations that exist that are in control. Some of them just used what was there in their system, and some used or had customized them fairly extensively. The scheduling process was the one that was the most interesting to me. Some of them, almost all of them, have, like the manager or the owner and maybe a key employee, pretty thorough review of the calendars of the scheduling once a week. And they might spend 2.5 hours, doing that. And then on a daily basis, they would have a very short team meeting to kind of talk about the priorities for the day. They all indicated that is becoming more and more burdensome as they get busier and busier. And we'll talk about a little bit later, as the size of your business grows in terms of sales, that almost automatically equates to people. And as you do more and more products and services, that's going to begin to expand, the equipment and stuff. So you got so many different combinations of things that get tied together. So as the business grows, those combinations just begin to explode, and it makes scheduling a little bit harder. And almost all of them indicated that they're beginning to feel the stress of that. Couple of them had, interestingly enough, had a large monitor in the production area. And on that monitor, they also had access to control, so they could look at jobs, from that monitor, from that computer. And they also used it to host their Google Calendar, so that they could see schedule stuff in that way. Very few, I think only 1 or 2 used dashboards, but not even in that context very extensively. Now, if you've downloaded that handout today, the very first page, one of my good friends, and I hope he's on the call, so I didn't step on his toes. He shared a picture of his production board, and I thought it was pretty cool. It's very much like I recall. When I was in business, we actually had a production board physically on the wall. I had a wall that was probably 30 foot long, and we had it gridded out very much like you see in that handout. Now, he tracks estimates that way on the far left. In the middle, that's where they do the scheduling, and it's an erase board, so you can see the impact of the changing and wiping it where it's getting more and more cloudy. And then down on the far lower right-hand corner, those little, they're color-coded magnetic strips. So that, in my interpretation of that, that is really, in essence, how he is doing somewhat the same kind of thing as the stations would do if they were being fully utilized. Then we finished up our conversation about what are their challenges, what kind of problems are they seeing. Without exception, they indicated that it was becoming more and more of a time-consuming effort, to keep track of schedules and keep things straight, and being able to make adjustments in their scheduling. Some actually weren't fully aware of the features that Sirius offers. So it was called the Cloud Calendar app and the Cloud Production app. These are two web-based tools that you can use on an iPhone or an Android phone or a tablet. You can use them back in the production area without actually having to have access to control itself. You can do so through the calendar, through those two apps. So you can use those tablets or the phone for moving a job from station to station. You can use it to check calendar. You can use it to change stations or change calendars. And likewise, if you've got people that are out in the field doing installation work, if they have access to a phone or a tablet, they can also collect signatures from customers when something is delivered or a job is finished, take pictures and post those, upload those pictures. So there are some cool things with those two cloud-based apps that, in my judgment, I think are very very good. I'm going to pause here for just a second to see if we have any questions or any comments that anyone would like to share. Gives me an excuse to get a sip of coffee.
No
right.
questions, Paul.
All right, let's keep going. Here's where I'm going to have to be a little bit on the creative side today. So I'm referring to it as the advanced production management processes, practices, where there's extensive or almost complete use of control software along with those two apps, the cloud-based apps, to do all of the production management. So within control, you're all aware that you have statuses. The orders begin their life in WIP, they go to build, they go to, and they, heaven forbid, you may have to even go to void one time or two. And then there are stations. And stations are just a further delineation of the incremental processes within a specific status. And it's those stations that provide the mechanism to move things through the production process. And that's where you have to take a deep look at your environment and the things that you do, how detailed or how broad you want to, or narrow you want to work those things through the processes. And we'll get into some of that discussion a little bit further on Thursday. The activity manager, you can use it just as the scheduling appointments, scheduling meetings, but it can also be used to schedule equipment and labor. And that'll be one of the next things that I'll be commenting on is, how do you do that? Through with the time clock. You can use the time clock to clock in the job, and when a task is finished, under one might be moved, to the next station, so that it can move from within a WIP status. It can move progressively along the incremental steps. That can be done at the order level, or it can be done at the line item level. And to begin with, you might want, if you're thinking in terms of making this, trying to automate some of those processes, you might want to begin perhaps at the order level, and then begin to bring it down, into a more detailed session. I'm going to open up an order here. Linda, you're seeing control, aren't you?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'm going to open up just a random order here. I'm going to get into the edit mode so we can see it. To using the activity manager to schedule equipment and labor, you first must be, you have to enable that process before you can do that. And I make reference to the handout on the second and third page of that handout is a list of all of the instructions for the different things that you might have to set up permissions for. Sirius refers to some of them as permissions, and sometimes they're credentials. But every one of the things that I'm going to mention, the instructions for how to enable those or how to establish those credentials are in that handout. So I'd rather not get into that detail here. So I'm going to open up an order. I just picked this one at random, okay? Then I'm going to come out to the scheduling tab. And the scheduling tab is one of those that you have to activate. You have to enable it, okay? And that's where the instruction comes in. When you do that, then that scheduling thing is going to show up. And that brings up this, okay? So in this case, you're going to see the different items. And then when you get into the edit mode, then this instance thing here that you see here is it's referring to either a person's calendar or a piece of equipment calendar, okay? So you can see that I put my own name on the labor pieces. I put Linda on one of the labor pieces, and I just arbitrarily picked up pretending that I had two roll printers, printer number 1 and printer number 2. It shows the time, the estimated time that control produced. And then if I wanted to schedule that, now you're beginning to see that I did these first two, okay? So if I just come out here and double click in this area here, it brings up the activity manager, okay? I got to see which one that is. That's a labor one, okay? So I'm going to, here at the top, it just gives you a description of what this is, gives you the reference to the order number in the digital prints, and then the actual order and the line item. This is line item 2. If you recall from that first sheet, there were 2 line items in there. Now I can come down to down to the bottom, and I can open up let's pick the date here, leave it today, and I'm going to just move it to, let's move it to 10:30, okay? So now this one is 1 hour and 3/4, and that it moved that out, okay? And if I do the same thing, the printer time, this must be a big job. Let's just start it here, the 25th. Let's start it at, say I started this morning at 8. And now it's running. I didn't pay any attention to if I got these in the right sequence, but the point that I wanted to show is the process of scheduling. Once it's enabled, you get the ability to come in on each of the individual items that you want to schedule and it will help you with the time. And now you're set up to begin to monitor that from a production workflow, okay? If I wanted to open up one of these and change the calendar to let's put it on the other printer. I could show it on both printers, and then you could kind of choose. I don't know that many people would actually put a separate item in there for the different if you had multiple printers, but some do. I know one client that I talked about earlier that has 23 pieces of equipment. So they have a half a dozen or so flatbed and roll printers. They have 3 or 4 thermal printers, multiple cutters and stuff. So it depends on how focused you are and how you're going to manage that workflow to have either get by with a generic printer, or if you have to get it down to the detail printer level. To save this. Now, let's go up to the talking next about using the time clock, okay? So that too has to be activated. You have to get it enabled. You have to get it enabled to do that, and the handout will give the instructions to do so. So I'm going to go up to the time clock, and I'm going to pick myself. It says that I'm not clocked in. So when you do that, you're going to see what you can do. You can clock in if you've and clock in to a specific station, and you can clock out. So let's just clock myself in. See if I can remember my password. Says I need a station. I'm going to skip that. Ordinarily, it would clock in, and then you would choose a station, but I'm not sure why I'm not getting that station that I can pick. But the concept is that you might clock in at the beginning, but not clock into a job. You might clock in and clock into a specific station. And then when you're done with that, you would have the option to clock out of that station. Or you could clock out for the end of the day, okay? Some of you may use this for payroll purposes. I did when I was had my business. For you can clock in, and then what I'm not seeing here, and I'm not sure why, is the choosing of the station. So I'll try to figure out why that's not working. We'll hit it again on Thursday. Just jotting a note to myself. Now, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just give some highlights of the cloud app. This may sound like a propaganda piece, but that's okay. So what is it? Why use it? And who wants it? Those are the basic questions. Well, first of all, it permits you to view the activity manager from any mobile or desktop browser, okay? And it permits you easy access and the ability to update activity calendars without actually logging in to control at all. And then it permits you to access the calendars while you're out in the field or back in the production area where you may not have computers that in stations that allow people to get to actually log into control. The calendar app can be used on any kind of a mobile device, a tablet, or a computer itself. It supports iPhone or iOS devices as well as Android, so it can be a combination of tablets in actual iPhones itself. And then any employee can use the calendar app as long as they've been set up, to do so. And there are credentials that have to be established in order to do that. So I think it's a wonderful tool. Particularly, I can't tell you how, and I'm sure you've all experienced it as well. You get somebody out in the field trying to do something, and they need to find out something, and they say, "Oh, God, crap! I can't get access. I have to make a phone call." Well, with the tablets, you can actually log in and look at the order itself. The permissions on how you get that set up is on that handout that's on the side. Now, what I can't demo is actually showing you. So now I'm going to skip down to the cloud app, and I'm going to pose the same questions. Why? What is it? Who uses it? Why do you want it? Well, the cloud app, or the calendar app, not the calendar, but the production app, allows you to set up job groupings, and we'll talk about what those are in a bit. To set up job groupings is a feature so you can see how things are going to progress through, and things can be grouped together to be moved through the production process. It enables users to easily make changes to jobs without logging in and having access to control. You can do that to gather signatures, you can gather documents, you can gather pictures, and that can be done either from the field or from your production shop area. And it enables you people to clock into a job from that device. So back in the production area, for example, rather than run away from to clock into control or to do something in control, your tablet might be sitting there more conveniently, and you can clock into a station. When you're done, you can clock out of that station. Again, you have to have permissions, and the handout shows you the permissions to get that set up so that you can use it. And I'll try to do a better job on Friday or Thursday to actually illustrate what that's all about. Now I want to spend just a couple minutes on see how we're doing on time. A couple minutes on some features called job groupings. So if I go up to production and then production setup, the job groupings is here, okay? I'm going to edit that so you can see it a little bit better. You have basically three choices. You can work at the order level, entire order, keep an entire order together as a single job as it's going through the processes. Make each line item and each child item appear as a single job. And then lastly, make each line item and each child a separate job, expanded, which is kind of an expanded view of the level. Now here's where you can still manually switch between these, or you can abide. And then I've read others that have indicated that you might want to begin that process at the order level. And again, that's going to be more of a factor in the size of your shop, how many people you got, how many orders that you're dealing with, and the complexity of those orders whether if it's best facilitated at the order level or facilitated more at the line item level. I'm just looking at my notes for stuff that I want to cover here. Then there's the cloud, or the production app also has what's called job boards. And I can't show you that, but within that app, you can create job boards. Think of job board as something physically similar to a job board, that a physical job board, that whiteboard that I show you, that's a handout. The job boards, in each person that's using the production app can set up their job boards. So job boards are similar to a physical board, and they're intended to move orders from place to place or station to station. And a job board can be made up of multiple lists, and those lists may correspond to stations themselves. And then the station ultimately determines where that job is in the production process. Also think of lists as being made up of cards, and those cards correspond to a job. Some important concepts about the job boards. You have to create a job board. A job board is going to be, you can be designated as your favorite and one that you're going to use the most. You can delete job boards. You can rearrange them so that they look, arrange them on your phone or on your tablet device, so that it is laid out the way you want to see them. And then using job boards is also important. You can permit seeing the job cards and what's with the station. That allows you to use the job board to be moved to a different station, from station to station. It allows you to view the details of each of those jobs in a board. You can look at the details of the job itself, look at the order details, and things like that. So, I'll try to hopefully be able to show you that a little bit more visually, on Thursday. Let me stop here and see if we've got some questions.
No questions, Paul.
All right. We're going to finish a little bit early today because I had to cut out some of those things. But that's all right. Now, the last topic that is considerations regarding beginning the process of changing some of your production management processes with the thought of automating more and more, if not all, of those steps. What are some of the things that that you have to be conscious of? Number one, I found, and I'm sure you have too, that when you make changes, a lot of times you get resistance, from the staff. That's okay. That's understandable. So the question then is, well, why do you want to rock the boat? Why do you want to begin that automation process? Well, you have to think of it in the context as, first, how is it going to benefit your business? As an owner or production manager, you must be able to articulate how the business itself. How will the employees benefit? What's it going to help the employees? How's it going to help them? Changing can be disrupting. There's no question about that. But how will the employees themselves benefit? That's the key question. And a very simple matter, I think it should help them do their job better, more efficiently, and ultimately better. And then lastly, how are your customers going to benefit from any changes make significant changes in the processes? Hopefully, it's going to help you do a better job of job turnaround. Hopefully, it's going to do a better job of reducing the number of errors that will cause things to have to be redone. And hopefully, by streamlining things and doing things more efficiently, you're going to improve the quality. So, how do you get employee buy-in, or you just say this is what we're going to do? End of discussion. I think you should think in terms of explaining why automating those processes is in your business's best interest, but at the same time, be able to convey how it's going to help them, how it's going to improve their performance in the shop. Solicit input from the employees. Kind of lay the groundwork of what it is that you want to do and why you want to do it, and then solicit input and comments and suggestions from them. You got to get them to buy in the process. Otherwise, you're going to have difficulty moving forward. Make sure that they understand. Do they understand why you want to do it? Why it's important to make, to begin to automate some of those processes. And if they don't think there is, why not? We want them to help you make sure that you haven't overlooked some things as you begin to make those steps forward. This might be kind of a dangerous thing, to jump into. But have you considered any kind of an incentive mechanism for your production staff that makes them feel rewarded for doing a good job, makes them feel rewarded when things happen as they should? So set up some incentives that are geared to achieving specific goals. Those goals might be, related to scheduling. It might be related to efficiency. It might be related to, to quality. And then any kind of an incentive has to be based on exceeding those quantifiable and identifiable goals. When I did this a long time ago, my commitment was to put a pool of money on the table, in essence, every month. I'm just going to pick a number. Maybe it was $100. And I would commit to distribute half of that every month based on the goals that had been achieved. The other half I put into a pool for the end of the year. So any employees that were still at the end of the year, we would distribute the second half. My objective in doing that was I wanted to incrementally reward them for doing a good job, but I also wanted to encourage retention. I'm sure everybody, experienced turnover. Well, my objective when I did this was I wanted to create an incentive to, for people to stay. That helps me. That helped me with trained people, so that you weren't constantly in a mode of having new people that you had to, to kind of get their feet on the ground. And the way the people were compensated then, when the goals were met, was based on their hours. How many hours did they work that month? And they were rewarded on their work hours. So it wasn't everybody got exactly the same thing. We looked at the total number of dollars that were going to be dispersed, looked at the total number of hours that all of the people that were affected how many hours total did they work, and then that created the hourly increment, and then everybody got either cash or a check based on their hours worked. I found that kind of incentive mechanism helped tremendously. It helped reduce the redos because of carelessness. You can't eliminate it, but it helped reduce that. It helped make sure that do a better job, that the quality was better. That doesn't necessarily translate directly to the production management, but if you can quantify goals that can be measured and can be rewarded, over the course of each month. We are going to cut short today, so we have lots of time for just open discussion. I think if anybody would like to offer suggestions or comments or things, I would really welcome that. So I'm hoping that we can use 10 minutes or so for just some open discussion, sharing your experiences, how you manage the processes. Anybody want to speak up? Some of the people I've worked with are on the call. I hope they'll share.
Paul, we did have a comment on when you were trying to clock into a station.
Yeah.
The station is on the pop-up window when you clock in. You were looking for where the station was?
Yeah.
And you pick it there. See that station drop down to the right?
Oh, good Lord. Blind as a bat. I'm sorry. Stupid. Okay.
Well, that's okay.
I thought that was my name. I was just not paying attention. Sorry. Thanks.
We do have a question, and it's from Michael. And Michael, I'll unmute you. 1 second. All right, muted. Michael, do you have a microphone? All right. The question is your opinion that we use a digital job board?
Yes. I think you'll see when we get into Thursday's topics, I say yes, but quite frankly, I've got to also put a caveat there. One of the things that you'll see on Thursday, a lot of how you approach and view managing your production processes is largely driven by your volume, your sales volume. Not so much the dollar value, but the number of orders. And, the client, I've worked with about 40 clients, for some in-depth reviewing. And a company that's under, say, $500,000, typically will have maybe 2 people in the production process. They may have 3 pieces of equipment. So it's a lot easier to manage those, like most of you have done. But one of the clients that I've worked with is $4.7 million in sales. They have 26 employees involved in the production process. They have 23 pieces of equipment in their production area. So that translates to they have 23, on average, will have 23 new orders every single day. And they better be darn efficient in how they handle that workload. So if you'll see on Thursday, you got a spigot with your new orders coming in the front door. And your objective is to get those in the spigot, get them into the work queue, perform the work, and every single day have the same number of orders go out the door that came in, so that you got a continuous flow of stuff coming in, stuff that's still in process, and stuff that's going out the door. The bigger you are in terms of the number of orders that you have to deal with, and the number of pieces of equipment and the number of people that are involved in that process, it's going to be much, much harder to try to do that outside of the context of control and in the features that the control provides. Directly in control itself, but more importantly, in these cloud tools that can be used in the production area, as I've said, and they can be used out in the field. So yes, I say yes emphatically. I say it's even stronger for anybody that's in the $1.5 million, $2 million in sales. And I know, just looking at the list of people that I recognize, we have some that are in that high end of the spectrum, for volume. Does that help, Michael?
He doesn't have a microphone.
I'm sorry.
They're trying to automate as much as possible, and in the field, they want to use tablets for their installations. So the calendar app really would be the best solution for that.
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
The question is, how do you obtain the calendar app and the production app? You do have to be running Control 6.0. Both the calendar app and the basic production cloud app are free. You can upgrade to a plus version of the production cloud app. In the handout, Paul explained how to access those apps.
And my bucket list for Thursday was also going to hit what Linda just said, that you have to be on. I think you have to be on support too, Linda, don't you?
That's
as
correct.
well as 6.1.
Yes. That's
advanced,
correct.
or what she alluded to in the basic production tool is no charge. The plus one is it varies by the number of people that are logged in, but it provides a lot more functionality than the basic one does. For example, the ability to take pictures out in the field when you're done, and or the ability to get signatures when you're done. I think that's part of the plus package.
We do have another question. How do you handle non-job related time? In other words, shop cleanup and organization. And that is from Pete.
Hadn't really thought about that, but I think you can do things at the employee level that are not directly related to a job. Because for example, if you clock in, you can clock in general. That's a kind of a label that's there, which means that you're not literally logged into a job itself. You're just in the consulting context. You might be on the bench. You might be on the bench to do, to clean up at the end of the day or something like that. So I think the mechanism is there, Pete, to do that.
All right. We have another question, and this is from Darren. After you schedule labor and equipment, like you did earlier, how does the production staff see that schedule so they know what job they should be working on at any given time?
Well, they would see it if they had access to the terminal, to a tablet. They would be able to see the calendar, and it would depend. Labor. If labor is being scheduled, so just like in the illustration, I scheduled myself, and I scheduled Linda to do one of those tasks. So if we looked from the field or from a tablet in the production area or out in the field, you're going to see what's on your calendar, what's on your bucket list. And then you can log in, clock in. As you finish one, then you can clock into the next task that you see on your calendar. Piece of equipment is slightly different. Obviously, they're not going to clock in. So someone is going to clock that device in or that process in and then clock it out when it's done.
Or you could have a job, a big monitor up that you could see the calendar as well.
Yes. That's in essence what a couple of the folks that I alluded to at the beginning, they have large monitors up on the wall. And there's no reason in the world why that can't be the the activity manager calendar rather than a Google calendar. And it would readily show the jobs right from control rather than working outside of control to essentially try to echo some of those things that you're attempting to schedule. Good comments. This is really great.
I don't think we have any other questions. I think we've touched on all the questions.
All right. Well, Thursday, you're going to see my creativity on artwork, which is not very deep, but it's. I'm going to try to visually illustrate a lot of the things that we'll be talking about. We won't be spending a great deal of time in control necessarily, but we're going to be talking about concepts. We're going to be talking about processes. And the ultimate objective is there will be a couple of tools for you to use away from the webinar that are intended to help you begin to think through and plan your processes and how you're going to implement those processes. Whether you want to use the existing stations, that's fine. If you don't, you understand your process a heck of a lot better than in it. That is what may be reflected in control. But the idea is for you to begin to think through your processes now and how you might want to alter, narrow, expand those processes to fit your business.
Paul, we have a comment for Thursday, okay. And this is from Greg. Comment for Thursday. We use the Plus production app, but we find it hard to confirm the recording of time on the phone so that we know that all is set correctly. There is no overview of time for installers like there is on the computer in the plant. Is there a way to address this so that our installers can review their day? And Greg, I've unmuted you if you have a microphone.
I am here. We have been on the system for 5 years. Can you hear me? I'm assuming you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
We've been on the system for 5 years, and one of the frustrations are when we use the phone app, there's a lot of variables. The phone tower, the phone being used, the operator of the phone, lots of things going on. And
Are you there? Greg, we lost the audio. Linda, are you there?
I am here. Greg,
Okay.
we lost you.
Linda, his question or comments, did he articulate that in the questions box? Can we use it as a follow-up?
He's still here. I don't know why we're not hearing him, but let me reread the question. They use the Plus Production app, but they find it hard to confirm the recording of time on the phone so that all correctly. There is no overview of time for installers like there is in a way to address this so that our installers can review their day. So in other words, I think what Greg is asking about is to look at the activities for that particular installer for the whole day.
That's
Greg,
correct.
do we have you back?
Yeah, I'm back now.
Okay.
But you're correct. You're stating it correctly. It's so can we address that? Because we do get good information with the phone app. We just struggle with the accuracy of it because we are working through the cloud, and all that information doesn't always transfer the way we would prefer.
Are you using the calendar app as well, or just the production cloud app?
Just the production app to record time. We want as accurate time for our installers of what we're doing. They go into casinos and literally spend 9-10 hours in a casino doing wraps, and we're trying to determine our expenses there when they're there that long.
On the calendar app, Greg, it does I can't see it right now, but it does give you a summary of time for the day, and I think you can look at it from a week's view. There is a time summary. I recall
And person
seeing
by person as well.
By person, yeah.
Very similar to the activity manager in Control. It's on the calendar app.
I think, Linda, can we maybe take this offline a little bit and just confirm that I'm going to have to hook into you because I can't see I can't log in. Let's try to do it offline and then further comment on this on Thursday.
That sounds good.
Okay. We're right at 11, everybody. This is kind of a new venture approach for a webinar, for me, and I hope, I really, really hope that we covered some meaningful things, for you to think about. Appreciate your feedback and comments on how we might do something like this a little bit differently or a little bit better. So your feedback would be much, much appreciated. Take care, everybody, and I hope we see all of you back on Thursday again.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you.